why is compelling enough for you to push so you don't fail. And when I was thinking about like what I would talk about with regards to business plan, and because I've done business plans almost every year since I started just doing conventional real estate back in 2014, or I should say I have done them every single year. And when I look back at all of the business plans, when I had the most compelling why at the beginning of the year, the end of the year was much closer to my goal. Now, I mentioned this to a couple of you, but I've never actually hit a goal that I've set for the year until this year. So that's 10 years of me setting. Now, I don't set reasonable goals. I don't set crazy ones either, but I'm always pushing myself to the edge. Right? And I'll take you through why. But when I was thinking about what has changed over the years and what has been more effective, I really narrowed motivation and reasoning, justifying your why, down to 3 things. And the first one is what we just went over, which is survival. I think that most people, regardless of what goals they set, will make and earn enough to survive at the level of the life that they currently have. And so if you need to make $150,000 in order to live the life that you're currently living, very typically you're going to make within 10 to 20% of that $150,000, almost without fail. Now, the way to illustrate this, so Theo, like, what's a crazy income goal for you next year? And understand, I coach Theo, and he's having, so I know what a crazy goal is. So tell me something not like stupid, but like tell me something that's like really pushing yourself.
500,000.
That's the exact number I was going to use. What is the likelihood that you will hit $500,000 in earned income next year?
10%.
10%. It's a great number. This works out really well for me. Now, what if I told you, and this might be a little bit graphic, but what if I told you at the end of the year, if you didn't make $500,000, that I would kill you?
I could probably do it.
You could probably do it. Now, when you think about doing it, would you have to change drastically either what you sacrifice and or the activities that you were doing on a daily basis to make sure that you hit 500,000?
Yeah.
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 So what this illustrates to me is that we have the capacity to hit these crazy goals and do outsized, create outsized outcomes. It's just that the why has to be compelling enough for us to do it. And when you talk about like, I might not be here, I might die or not be, and that's why when people have compelling family reasons, right? My mother was a great example of this. When I was going to college, the year after I went, my younger sister went. And for a year, my younger sister, myself, and my older sister were all in college at the same time. And none of us chose an in-state school, right? So the time, my mother, to her credit, did 98 transactions that year. The compelling reason was so good that it forced her to do the activities that she was uncomfortable with to obtain what she had to, right? So we have the capacity to do it. It's just that our why is typically not great enough. The reality is on this that most people will never move past survival mode. It's because they don't take the time. It's because they sign up for an event and then they don't come. It's because they get uncomfortable around people that are pushing and striving for bigger things because it illustrates very clearly what they're not doing themselves. Most people will never get beyond this. So here's where I'm at. So the second way to motivate yourself to determine the why is like what I would consider like a thriving lifestyle. right? We go out, we earn more money, we use justification of cars and houses and, watches and fancy vacations, right? Because that motivates us. Has anybody ever set a goal to buy something if you earned a certain amount of money? Anybody here? I have, right? Pedro is here now because I did it one year and then he helped me buy my Range Rover. If you can choose things that are compelling enough, you can justify working harder. You can compel yourself to work really, really hard for that particular item, that particular outcome, whether it be a vacation, whether it be a house, whether it be a car, whatever it might be. You can work really hard. You can use that. Or what a lot of coaching companies will do is go buy the bigger house. And you know why you buy a bigger house? Because it's going to cost you $10,000 a month. And $10,000 a month will compel you to work harder. Now, all you've done is you've added more things to survival. And that's good to motivate you until it's not. But that's why we see so many real estate agents. They make a ton of money when it's good. And then all of a sudden it switches to a difficult market, but they've increased their lifestyle to the point where they can't keep up with it. They don't have the savings to offset it. And then they get foreclosed on. Then they start going, and then mentally, that is so difficult to overcome that they end up coming back to a real low maintenance point. And or they get out of the business and they go do another job. Because mentally, it's killed them. I've used this and you can use it. So I don't want to imply that that's not a good thing to use. I think to a certain extent you have to go through that to recognize why that won't work. I've done it. I bought the house. I bought the cars. I bought the watches. I've gone on the $25,000 vacations. And what's funny is that in most coaching environments, in most company environments, that is used as fuel. So up on stage is the guy that's got the 3-piece suit, and he's got the Lamborghini, and he's got a cook, and he's got a driver. And on the surface, when he's sitting up on that panel getting interviewed by the coach, there's a smile on his face. He couldn't look happier. She couldn't look happier. But then peel it back, right? They've been divorced 3 times. Their kids barely know them, right? Their health is failing. Now, they might have enough sort of concern about their appearance that maybe they look great. Maybe they got a 6-pack. But I think that that's more out of them feeling uncomfortable and trying to prove who they are rather than just being what they actually want to do. So you can use these things I have to motivate yourself. And I'm not suggesting that it's not valuable, but I think it's temporary. Because what people tend to do is if they set this big audacious goal to earn a certain amount of money and they push themselves to make that amount of money, typically what happens, and John sees this a lot too, because he's a broker, you see people come in, they get a certain level of success, and then all of a sudden it drops off and they never even come close to that number again. Would you say you see that?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think a big part of it, in my opinion, is, and you're alluding to it, Ben, is the big picture, right? So one of the things I live by is you can have anything you want, you can't have everything you want. And when you try and chase everything you want, it's kind of what you said about the Lamborghini and the thing and the clothes and the watch and the vacation. You try and have all that, you're probably going to be scraping by in some way until things go south and they're not good. And then it's so disheartening, as you said, it's hard to come up off the mat again. So I, for a little bit, had the slightly bigger house. It wasn't crazy, but that was back in 05 or 06. And then the crash happened. So at 40, I moved out of that nice house and into my sister's basement for a year. And I owned 6 properties and had 10 employees. And I was in my sister's basement. It was interesting. So I learned a lot.
Yeah.
But from there, at some point, somebody said that quote of, you can have anything you want, you can't have everything you want. So I had a simple car, small house, fine clothes, nothing fancy. But those other things I said earlier. So to answer your question, Ben, I think what happens is they don't have that big picture about what really matters to them. There are way too many shiny objects. And if you're trying to figure out which ones you want, you're either going to have all of them, like the guy you said, but that's not good probably, or you're just going to always be chasing, never feel fulfilled. The big picture, I guess that's how I would describe it. They don't have the big picture of what really matters to them. And therefore it's just an endless chase that at some point you wear out. You can't keep doing that.
Well, and it's because, so like imagine you come to this peak of income to obtain these goals, right? And then the goals, for the most part, they're fleeting. So once you get used to something, you drive a really nice car for a certain amount of time, like the impact and the motivation behind getting that car starts to fade, because you realize that it's nice, but it's not something that you walk into every single day and you feel this motivation to continue to push yourself to do these very difficult and hard things. And so what I think happens is people recognize the amount of work it takes in order to accomplish the goal, and then they don't see the return on investment, right? It's not worth me not hanging out with my kids. It's not worth me, driving this car to work the extra hours that are required in order to do it. I don't want the pressure. So they accomplish the thing, but they don't connect the value of the reward for that is not commensurate with the work that it takes. And I think, again, you'll see one of two things happen. Either you peak and you drop back down because the value isn't there, or the second thing is you peak and then you move the goalpost. So, okay, well, you know what? If that $80,000 car wasn't great, then I'm going to buy a $250,000 car. Or I'm going to buy the vacation home. Vacation homes are great, right? It's used as a motivational tool. But think about the amount of work that you have to do in order to spend the time that you're there. So we see this 2 ways, and that's what I kept doing. All right, I want to make $250,000. All right, check that box. Well, now I need $500,000, and then I need $750,000. And then you know what? $1 million will make me happy because of all of these reasons. I can afford this. I can go on these vacations. I can spend money. I can give this money away. I can do all of that kind of stuff. And then you accomplish that goal, and then you're left feel like that feeling doesn't extend much past the accomplishment of the goal. And you start to go, well, why the fuck am I doing all of this work? Why am I pushing myself? Why am I sacrificing time with my family? Why am I sacrificing my health? Why am I doing all of these things? Now, again, if you're in an environment that rewards that behavior, they're going to continue to push you to think big, which is really just spending big in order to keep you motivated to continue to push. Then you get into a vicious cycle of thinking that you need to reward yourself because of the work that you're doing. Well, I deserve this because, well, I want this vacation house because I worked so hard for it. I want this $30,000 trip because I worked so hard for it. But the person that forces themselves to become that person solely for these material things or experiences that you could have otherwise had at a much lower price, the people that do that, at least speaking from personal experience, even if they accomplish those things and get the time away, typically you're not a person that can turn off who you have become to enjoy the time away that you have. To the point where, even on a very small scale, in 2015, a year after my daughter was born, it was August, and we took a vacation, my wife and my daughter, and we went to Owl's Head, Maine. We rented this beautiful place, which at the time was a lot of money. It was like $4,000 for the week or something like that. And we stayed in this beautiful place. It was right on the water. And for that year, I had pushed myself obnoxiously hard, which I wanted to. I wanted my wife to be able to stay home with the girls, and I wanted the flexibility and the freedom. So I worked really, really hard. And then I ceremoniously, because I had taken no time off for 13 months, like no weekends, no nights, I like ceremoniously turned off my phone. I left it in my office desk and I drove to Maine. So literally I didn't have a phone. And it took me, I don't even know that I came out of it, but I would say that I enjoyed maybe the last day or two. But I got there and my daughter was just playing on the floor with pots and pans, and I looked over at my wife and I was like, what do we do? And she's like, this is it. We like hang out. And I'm like, no, I need tasks. And so she started going, all right, just go run 6 miles and come back. She brought a 1,000-piece puzzle. I put it out on the table. In like 18 hours, I didn't leave the table. All I did was puzzle, right? Because I couldn't slow down enough to actually enjoy the time. So then I worked really, really hard to accomplish all of these goals, to go on that vacation. And then I sit around and I can't even enjoy the vacation. My wife can't enjoy the vacation because she sees how much I'm struggling to enjoy the vacation. The only one that did was my daughter, until she touched the back of the fucking wood stove and burnt her hand. So like, I explain this because if you can start to really connect with the why, and this is the third sort of process of justification and reasoning and creating your why, I think it's going to be much more compelling, both short-term and long-term, to actually produce the results that you want, not the results that you see other people get, not the houses and the cars and the vacations and this lifestyle that you see on Instagram and that people talk about on stage. I promise you, most of those people are fucking miserable. Most of them. The third level of motivation, I think, is freedom. I look at freedom as 3 different things. I look at financial freedom, I look at time freedom, and I look at location freedom. What do I mean by financial freedom? So let me ask you, how many, with a like show of hands, how many people here can pay all of their bills and continue to live the lifestyle that they are without earning any income from selling real estate? Anybody? John can. Financial freedom, to me, is defined as having all of your living expenses for the lifestyle that you're living right now paid for without earning any income on a monthly basis. I was introduced to this concept back in 2021, maybe 2022, the end of 2021, by a lot of you guys know Aaron Novello. I got the opportunity to go down to Florida, actually caught COVID while I was there. Sandy was not happy when I returned and gave it to her. But the end of 2021, I went down and I was introduced to this idea of financial freedom. And the idea of, I knew that I always wanted to create, and that's why I bought some investment properties. I always wanted to create residual income to be able to at some point retire, right? That was all the idea behind it, because all of those years of working really hard and pushing myself to, build this bigger lifestyle and all of that. I knew that I didn't want to continue to do that. I knew it was wrong. I knew that there was a means to the end, right? I could justify working really hard if I eventually retire. But the idea of creating financial freedom so that you can do what you want independent of whether you make money was a whole new concept. And it was hard to wrap my head around. What would I do? It's a really important question to ask yourself. If at this point, and going back to the number that we put on what is our total amount that we need to earn in order to live the lifestyle that we're living, what if that money just came in at the beginning of the month? And you didn't have to show up, would you? Now, John would, he's here. right? Which shows that he has a genuine interest in doing this, even though he doesn't have to. So what would you do? And so you ask yourself, how much would you need to make on a monthly basis to maintain your current lifestyle? Now, a side note here, you can do this much faster if you're willing to sacrifice. So Aaron Novello, who most of you guys know, his living expenses are far below mine. He rents his house that he lives in down in Florida. He was making $1 million a year and he was living in a 2-bedroom townhouse with 2 kids. Right? He didn't buy the stuff. He didn't buy the watches and the cars and the houses and increase his lifestyle. What he did was he took earned income and invested it into assets that pay him money, which is why right now at the age of 42, he's financially free and independent. But you got to play that game. So write down, if I had, then I would. If I had, then I would. If I had enough residual income to pay my living expenses, then I would what?
Learn and teach all day, which I wrote down a long time ago.
Yeah. And I think, like as a side note, because John just kind of touched on it, I think what you realize is that if you go through the process, whether you determine your reasons and justification or financial freedom right now, or you go through the process of thriving and buying things and consuming, I think at the end of the day, what most people do is once they become financially free and independent, they realize that life is really about having an impact on other human beings. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Gary Vee that said it the other day. I'm trying to think so I can give them credit. But it was somebody that I follow on social media said, if I'm selfish over anything, it's that feeling I get when I help other people. And just like, think about that for a second. Like, that's what I want to be selfish about. I want to be selfish about that, because that is like, if you help somebody, if you move them along, if you have an impact on them to help their family or their friends or their lifestyle, or you help somebody and you see it have a material impact, or even if it doesn't, that feeling, there's very few things that are better than that, if anything. And I'm selfish for that now. That's what I want. So if I had, then I would. What would you do? And when I was working like crazy, all I wanted, I used to watch, anybody watch those Alaska shows? Like the ones where the guys like live in the woods and they go out and they trap and hunt and like Life Below Zero and that sort of thing. I am obsessed with those shows, like obsessed with them. Do you know why? I've determined this after a long time. I've determined that because I was uncomfortable doing the things that I was doing for the reasons that I was doing them, I imagined that the complete opposite lifestyle was what I wanted. It's quiet. You don't have a whole lot of expenses. Nobody's relying on you, right? You're out in nature. All of those things were really, really powerful for me because internally, I was battling this back and forth of why I was doing the activities. Now, I have the constitution strong enough to push through and continue to do that. I mean, and that's not a particularly good thing because it comes from a massive fear of failure. I was so concerned about failing and not being able to provide for my family, or using that as a justification and as an excuse to push myself to the limits that I did. But I used all of that, and I produced these outcomes. And these outcomes never made me feel like the effort and the sacrifice that I was making was worth obtaining those things. And so I looked at what these guys were doing, this simple lifestyle, this uncomplicated thing, and I said, well, that's what I want. I used to tell my wife, I'm just going to buy a cabin in Alaska. We're going to all move up there. And she's like, that is not who I married. It's like, shit. So I can't do that, right? Because she's like, I can't leave her and the girls. Although I said when they turn like teenagers, I might go up there more extended periods of time. But again, like if I had that freedom, what would I do? And then I started to think about that when I posed this question and I said, if I could wake up on a monthly basis and not have to earn income, what would I do? And realistically, having a farm and being out in nature and doing a lot of that stuff is really compelling to me. But I also recognize that not having the feeling of having an impact on other human beings would be really difficult for me. Like going up to Alaska sounds great until you realize that I would just be doing things selfishly for me to live the lifestyle that I wanted to live while not having any impact on other people. And that wasn't compelling enough for me. But I wasn't able to realize that until I went through the exercise of determining what I would do if I never had to earn another dime. What I think is true, though, is that once you start living authentically, like if everybody here could just do what they wanted to do to have an impact on other people, I almost guarantee you that everyone here would make more money than they would have otherwise. That's the thing, is that when you're not actually trying to make the money and you're really just living to have an impact on other people, that's actually when the money just starts flowing in very, very easily. And that's been my experience this year. That's why I've far exceeded my financial goals this year for the first time in my career. That wasn't an important factor for what I was doing. People are out there in proximity to you. There are really good people out there. And if you start living authentically like that, and your primary goal is to have an impact on other people, great people are going to see that and they're going to surround you. I promise you that happens. So here's what I would say. If you go through that exercise, here's what I did. So what would I do? So then I would work 25 hours a week. I do meaningful work with people that I like and enjoy. I want to spend time with my family, by myself, with nature. I want the time to pay attention to my body, to my mind, to my faith, right? And I want to have a massive impact on other people. That's what I would do. And when I determined that, the motivation for me to become financially free is like overwhelming. I am going to sacrifice. I'm going to sacrifice time with my family. I'm going to sacrifice certain things in my life. I'm going to sacrifice thriving, right? I'm not going to go on that vacation. I'm not going to buy the vacation house. I'm not going to buy the new car, right? I'm going to sacrifice things in order to get closer to that goal. I'm going to do everything that I can to do that. And once you start living in that life, I promise you, it's almost impossible to fail. It's impossible to lose the motivation to push yourself through the how you're going to do it, because the motivation is so overwhelming. It's like your life depended on it. That's how I feel right now, pushing through the how to make all of this happen. Everybody talks about, and I hate the line like, well, you got to find your why, right? Like every motivational speaker will talk about that. And they're correct. It's just that they can't articulate why that actually matters. And it actually matters because that will have no end in motivation. Having an impact on other people has no end. You can't like accomplish it and then it's done. On an individual basis, you might, but you will be thirsty for that over and over again, unlike a car or house or vacation. If I had, then I would. I'd spend a lot of time, guys, like an obnoxious amount of time trying to figure that out. and talk about it. Talk to me, talk to other people, be in mastermind groups, talk to one another. That shit will change your life.
Can I give one sentence?
Yeah, please.
Mine, again, some years ago now, is to be God's healthy, wise steward of people, time, and wealth. And they're very much in that particular order, of course. And that took me a while to get there, and it had some permutations.
Yep.
Hasn't changed in maybe 5 years or 7. But to be God's healthy, wise steward of people, time, and wealth.
Yeah.
To your point, figuring that out.
And I love that. And John and I have known each other long enough and sort of been in proximity to one another that I know that we share the same sort of ideas behind this. And essentially, you're in a very much in alignment with we say it differently, but the messaging and the justification behind it is the same.
Yep.
Right? It's impact. It's doing these things with people that you like and enjoy. I mean, what's better than that? Like hanging out, doing impactful work, stuff that fills your soul while hanging out with people that you like and enjoy. I mean, what else in life is better than that? Listen, again, on an individual basis, you can kind of justify some really crazy experiences or, like things and stuff like that, but they're momentary. They come, they go. Take a minute and just think about the difference between like the feeling of doing things for freedom, for the why, versus doing things to thrive. Like the car, the house, the boat, the vacation. Like the difference between those, how those feel motivationally is drastic to me. If it is for you, then perhaps looking at your financial time and locational freedom is important. I believe that you can only behave in accordance with the way that you see yourself. If you can't see yourself as a person of impact, if you can't see yourself as a person who is going to do outsized, activities and outcomes, and it's going to be really impossible for you to do this. So if you set your goals at the beginning of the year, I'm going to make $500,000, but you can't even see yourself as that person, it's going to be impossible for you to actually step into that role and create that outcome. So you have to start imagining yourself. You have to start painting a picture of that person. And I've done a lot of work to do that. I've communicated to a lot of other people, to my coach, to mastermind groups, to the Freedom Builders group that I'm a part of. Because I literally mastermind with people whose sole focus on a weekly basis is to spend time to figure out how we can obtain financial freedom. It's important, guys. So for me, to paint that picture, like I wake up well-rested when I wake up. I spend some time reading, connecting with your faith, whatever it is that sort of brings you into the day, right? You work out without being rushed. How many people here can work out and not be rushed through it? I mean, I get up at 4:45 to make sure that I can do my morning routine before I have to get to the office. What if I could start that when I wake up? That'd be cool, right? Like that'd be cool to just kind of wake up when you do. Work out for as long as you want to work out. And then head into the office or start working with people that you like and enjoy to have an impact. Like that's, like you start to paint that picture and all of a sudden it starts to go, yeah, that feels good. That's what I want. I like that. But you got to paint the picture. You've got to see what this life is. Work 4 to 5 hours a day. And then you come home, you spend time with your family. Or you do activities that fill you up as a person. You create, you build, you inspire, you lead other people. Like all of that is possible. But do you see how it's very, very difficult to stay motivated like that when you're in survival mode, when you're only earning enough to pay your current bills? Thinking that, you know what, retirement is 65. Fuck that noise. That's too long. I'm not saying that I want to retire. I'm not saying that I want to just sit around. That would be terrible too. But like waiting until 65, who knows where your health is going to be, right? If you look at this chart of like optimizing to maximize the amount of time. So when people look at like a chart with, let's do this. Am I going to mess you up with this? I can move it over here. Okay. So if we look at like a chart of like, so if this is time, right? And this is money, right? Your wealth starts going up like this over time. But if you look at the opposite side and you look at your health, when your health starts to decline, it goes down like this eventually until you die. That makes sense? So what we're trying to optimize is this middle time period where you have your health and you have your wealth. The longer that you can live in that period, the better off you'll be. So if you obtain financial freedom and independence at the age of 30, and your health is exceptionally good, especially because you have the time to pay attention to it until you're 80, now you're living 50 years where you're maximizing your health and your wealth. Versus folks that work their ass off, striving for these things, but they have to continue to do it, and they maximize their wealth at the expense of their health, and they never have the time to enjoy the money. And then when they do have the time to enjoy their money, they don't have the health that will allow them to do it. You guys, we have to maximize that time period where we have health and wealth. And doing that by looking at financial freedom is massive. It's so important. So let me just get into the weeds for a minute, right, with financial freedom. So what that looks like, because I want you guys to be able to connect the dots between that. So like, give me an example, like what, if people are comfortable, like what's financial freedom? What do you think financial freedom is for you guys? Like how much on a monthly basis residually would you need to earn in order to live the lifestyle that you want to live without earning any money? Does anybody have an idea? How much per month? 5,000? 10,000?
Yeah.
10?
Sure.
Okay. Is it 5?
No, I was going to say
8,000?
yeah.
Yeah.
I know I can do it with 8.
Okay. 8,000. Anybody else?
Wow.
12. Anybody higher?
15.
15. Anybody higher? Lauren, what are you?
Sky's the limit.
Yeah. All right. So I've determined that mine is 20. So, but realistically, if I pulled back and sacrificed, it would be somewhere around 10 to 15. Most people could live on $10,000 to $15,000, especially if they had freedom of location.
I did hear in Massachusetts the minimum income, the new minimum income, annual income is $300,000 in Massachusetts to be able to pay your bills.
As a family of 4.
Yes.
Yep.
So
So
what is that amount?
Then you get 150 a spouse, if you will.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's, what is it a month?
it's 25,000.
25, yeah.
25,000
It's
bucks a
insane
month.
here.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So we do live in an area that is drastically more expensive to live. But if you once you obtain that financial freedom, you can live wherever you want. You're not tied to this location. Right? Now you can choose to, but most people could live on $10,000 or $15,000, especially if they have already purchased things and their house isn't, if you're buying a house right now, it might be more difficult to obtain those numbers. Or if you've already increased your lifestyle to a point where you have to pay for it and you enjoy that lifestyle, then your goalpost is going to be a little bit further to obtain that financial freedom. But here's what it looks like. Let's use an example of like 10,000 bucks a month. So 10,000 bucks a month, okay, will get you'll have to earn 120,000 bucks on a yearly basis in residual income to pay for that. $120,000 on an average return. How much do you need invested to earn $120,000? Depends on what your return is, right? but let's say conservatively, your investments pay you 6% per year. So 6% per year, somebody do the math, $120,000 divided by 6%. Yeah, it's like just over $2 million.
So you have that in the bank making 6% or in assets. That's how you
Correct.
make 120 a year without doing anything.
Without doing anything.
2 million a year.
Okay.
2 million, sorry.
So if you're doing it if you're getting a 10% return, that drops that number down to 1.2 million. Right? Most people who are investing this amount of money will earn somewhere between 8 and 12% on an annual basis. I think it's really like 6% is super conservative, but you can drop $100,000 into a syndication asset that somebody else is managing and doing, and you can earn 6% residual every single year. Grant Cardone will pay you 5 to 6% as it is, right? You can invest it in multifamily assets. You can invest it in the stock market. You can invest it in higher risk for a higher return. You can throw all of it in Bitcoin and you can make a lot more, right? Until you lose a lot more. But conservatively, 6% return to make $120,000, you got to have invested $2 million. So then we back out, what do we need to earn on an annual basis to be able to invest money to accumulate $2 million worth of investable assets to pay us 120 grand a year or $10,000 a month? Now, if you're working, if your living expenses right now are $5,000 a month, that's going to be 60 grand a year that you have to make from that. And then if you add on a certain amount of income on top of that, you set a goal to make $260,000. Now you've got $200,000 to invest per year, and it's going to take you 10 years. Okay?
Except it'll only take you 7 or 8 because the assets are going up, if I may, I think.
Correct.
It'll take less
So
than-
this will compound,
Yep.
but just for simple math,
Yes.
even if you set a goal to make $260,000 where your living expenses were 60, and you invested $200,000 every single year, at the end of 10 years, you could be financially free and independent. 10 years, that's it. But what do most people do? They have a $60,000 requirement to live their lives, so they make between $60,000 and $80,000. And they don't ever invest the money. And the beauty is that if you actually, like if that's your percentages, where you have an extra $200,000, and your living expenses are only 60, you can actually invest those in assets that will completely eliminate your tax liability. Completely eliminate it. I've told some of you, but do you know how much I'm paying in taxes this year? Don't tell the IRS. I'm paying $3,400 in taxes. It's crazy. What I found through proximity to really powerful people that know the IRS tax code, because the IRS tax code is 6,600 pages long. There's something like 18 of them are focused on how to pay taxes, and the rest are how to avoid taxes. Because the federal government wants you to invest in certain things, and if you do, they'll make it very easy for you to not pay taxes. And if you have an understanding, or if you pay somebody who has an understanding of the tax code, they can invest. If you owe a certain amount of, let's say you owe $100,000 in taxes because you're super successful. If you invest twice as much, you can typically all but eliminate your tax bill. So if your tax bill is 60 grand, if you have enough earned income to invest 120, you can eliminate your tax liability. And right there, that's a 30% return on your money just by not paying taxes. Like it's $5,000 or $6,000 for the rental properties that I have. And then I have money invested in syndication assets, which I have absolutely nothing to do with. I'm a limited partner, but I receive residual income and I will participate in property appreciation when they sell the multifamily asset. I have one in Texas. I have a couple in Cleveland. Those are easier investments. They're not as high of a return on investment as the ones that I do myself, but then I don't have to do them. There's multiple avenues that you can look at. That's also why a number of you guys have partnered with us at EXP. Because in addition to this, right, my number is $20,000 a month. I have $7,500 from real estate. Right now, 12 months into being at EXP, I'm averaging between $1,200 and $1,500 a month in revenue share. Most of you know what that is at this point, but revenue share is a result. I have 15 people that have partnered with me at EXP. Generally speaking, you make around $50 to $100 per month per agent that you sponsor and or that is in your downline. So right now I have 15 people in my downline. I'm making between $1,200 and $1,500 per month. So if you set your goals like mine are at $20,000, very soon I'm going to be at $10,000 at residual income from real estate. And the other 10, I have chosen a path where I don't need to make an extra $2 or $3 million to make up that $10,000. I'm choosing, because it aligns with what I want to do, to invest in EXP and agent attraction, because to earn $10,000 a month, it's a pretty simple math. If you make between $50 and $100 per person, to make $10,000, you just need 200 people in your downline. Right? Realistically, we see people that have attracted 15, 20, 25 people to the company, and then those people have attracted enough that all of a sudden they'll have 200. There's a guy in my upline, Lars Hedenberg. He's attracted 40 people to the company personally. He has 3,000 people in his downline. He's making $100,000 in residual income. There's different ways to do it. What I'm choosing to do is I'm choosing to do multiple buckets to increase the odds that I get there faster. So I'm making earned income to pay my expenses, to pay running this office. With the extra, I am investing in assets that reduce my tax liability. At the same time, because I am successful at this business, I am on social media to illustrate the value of what I'm doing. I'm attracting agents. I'm not proactively like cold calling them. John, why are you here? Like, did I call you?
Yeah, no, not at all. It's just from, simply put, because you got to be careful, I'll ramble, but I won't, is that it's noticeable, Ben, that what you do is you're trying to teach, help people. Again, we've known each other for a long time, sporadically, but we've known each other a long time. And I guess the simple way I would put it is you are doing things that attract people, even me, and I hope that doesn't sound wrong, but it's kind of funny, like I'm not here to necessarily do the budget or any of that, but there's something that you're doing that you're trying to help people that is attracting me, which is very rare. I said to Ben earlier over the coffee, my French press he made me, which was thank you, that
I am fancy with my coffee. I gotta be honest.
Of course, invites and come to this and webinar and seminar, and this is probably the first individual one outside of the National Association, the Mass Association, that I've actually said yes to. So what's the answer? I'm here because you're doing things, Ben, that have attracted me to say, I want to hear more about even what I'm doing. I want to be around other people who understand it or know what it's like to sacrifice or to go through or to read the Millionaire Next Door book, by the way. That's a good one too, based on a lot of what Ben said. That's why I'm here though, Ben, because what you're putting out there, it wasn't even a phone call. We haven't talked. What you're putting out there says, yeah, he's trying to help people. He's trying to pass on knowledge that will help people succeed faster. And maybe have some more balance in life and not chase the dollar. Nice things are great. They're fun. They're wonderful. You can have anything you want, not everything you want. But that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and I think that so even if you sort of look at what I'm doing and you go back to the justification and the reasoning that I am doing it, again, they all start to align. And the difficulty and the challenge of forcing the how every single day of how do I make enough money to retire so that I can stop doing what I'm doing and being as stressed as I'm being and make all of the sacrifice worth it, right? Versus living in this opportunity zone of creating business associations with other people, collaborating and creating the environment, investing the money to give me more and more freedom as time goes along, partnering with a company that allows me to start participating in the revenue in perpetuity so that can be another bucket that I start to drip into. And so what for me would take another 10 years to earn enough income, because at $20,000 a month, I've got to have $4 to $5 million invested, right? If I need 12, let's call it $11,000 still, then I've got to earn in excess of my expenses here at the office and at home. I've got to earn an extra $2.1 million after taxes to invest. So I could do that. I could probably do $200,000 or $300,000 a year just doing the same thing I'm doing right now, but that will take me an extra 10 years. So I'm going to sacrifice building net worth this way, because for me, it is more in alignment to help other people at this company and build that way, having an impact, because that's more motivational to me. It's not that I'm going to stop doing real estate and stop earning money from this revenue source, but you have to look at everything. And if you're the type of person that is going to continue to grow and succeed, and then you're naturally going to attract attention from other people. And so again, this all goes back to, listen, the nuts and bolts of filling out a business plan, it's important. It really is. Like, you have to do all of the things that you're going to do, but you have to go through this exercise of determining why. You can motivate yourself with stuff. I promise you, it is compelling. It will get you to earn that stuff. Everybody here is smart, hardworking, and ambitious. The opportunities will come. It's determining which opportunities are the most impactful for you. That's the bigger challenge. Is the opportunity to go and buy bigger things and motivate yourself with thriving? Or is it freedom? Is having freedom to do anything independent of what you earn on a monthly basis? I don't know. For me, there's nothing better than that. So, just to reiterate, I determine what your financial freedom number is if it motivates you. If stuff motivates you, it's worth it. Write things down. There could be a combination of both. I think what you'll recognize is if you have motivation to buy something, or if you have motivation for financial freedom, and you really understand both, I think what you'll do is you'll get to the point where you could probably obtain the thing that you want, but you won't even do it. You go, you know what, that $100,000 car, that can wait, because if I invest that $100,000 over here, it's going to give me $500 on a monthly basis residually. And then it's going to reduce my tax liability. So now I don't pay $50,000 in taxes or $25,000 in taxes. I've already made 25%. So there's this thing that that I heard a little while back. I want to get it because I want to say it right. Evaluating purchases. Write this down. If you can't buy it twice with cash, then you can't afford it. So if you can't buy it twice with cash, you can't afford it. If you really want financial freedom, the money that you use to pay for those things has to come from residual, not earned income. So that's what, honestly, my wife and I set that too. Like, there's things that we want to do. We're installing a 1,200 square foot garden at our house, which, by the way, is obnoxiously expensive, unnecessarily expensive. And it's my fault too, because I want it to be the way that I want it to be. But that money is coming from earned income. So we've determined that we still want to be able to have things, like, we don't want to sacrifice as much as we could in order to obtain it. Because right now our kids are 7 and 10, we're enjoying life. We really enjoy being outside. There are certain things that I'm not willing to sacrifice, and we've made that determination. But how we've determined that is we said we're going to cap what we spend on that excess at what we make residually. And now that's not pocket change for us at this point, because I'm making $7,500 to $9,000 a month. So we can actually spend a lot of money on it. I doubt we'll even come close to spending that on things like that, but that's how we've determined what our cap is. So it's got to come from residual income, not earned income. And the last thing, Don't try to justify it. Don't work it through your head and just oh, well, I'm going to do this because I'm going to buy the car because when I pull up to the appointment, that people will take me more seriously because I'm driving a Range Rover versus a Honda. Fuck you. You just want the car. And if you can pay for it twice in cash and it comes from residual income, don't justify it. Who the fuck cares? Do it. I'm going to spend $20,000 on a fucking garden. Try to justify spending $20,000 on a flower garden nonetheless. Right? It's hard to justify. I don't care. I'm not justifying it. I can't justify it. I want it. It comes from residual income and I can pay for it twice with cash. So I'm going to do it. But if you evaluate purchases using that criteria, it will help make it easier for you to do. Make sense? So to, again, recap, what is your financial freedom number? If I had, then I would describe in detail what your life would look like. Look at it on a daily, a weekly, monthly basis. How would it improve your health? How would it improve the relationships that you had? Think about financial freedom from that respect too. If you walked into your house every day and you weren't stressed about making money or putting deals together or doing things that you don't want to do because it's going to get the delivered result that you want, how would that improve your relationship with your spouse, with your kids? Like, how much more time could you focus on your health and your wellness, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, your faith? Like, all of those things sometimes get starved for time. They get overcome with the stress and the anxiety. And I would argue that the stress and the anxiety is less based on the activities that you're doing and the time that you're spending with the activities, and more because you're doing them for the wrong reasons, or you haven't connected the reasons with the activities. Right now, I work hard. I am stressed. All of that is fine because I know exactly where I'm going and I know why I'm going there. So it's okay for me. So I can correlate the stress with the justification and why and the reasonings, and then it makes it easier. I can sleep at night. It's hard, but that's okay with me. And how much impact could you have on others? The most important step in creating a business plan is having goals big enough to overcome the difficulty of the how. That's what we're doing. The rest of the business plan is all it's important. But this is the hard work. This is the shit that matters. The why and the justification. I'm crystal clear on it. Nothing will stop me from obtaining my goals. And I'm not asking for recognition or accolades or anything like that, but does anybody here not believe that I will hit $20,000 in residual income and become financially free and independent?
I believe it.
Yeah, I believe it. And that's what's most important, but I actually believe it. All of these goals that I used to set, I want to make $1 million a year. I want to do 100 transactions a year. Literally one of my passwords, and it's still sort of my password, so I can't tell all of you, but it had to do with hitting 100 transactions. Literally every fucking password I had. Sandy, we got to change that password too.
I know it.
So all of a sudden I get my identity stolen
click,
from
oh, I know that one.
Instagram Live now. I was obsessed with that, but I didn't, to me, it was a worthwhile goal. It justified some of the stuff. It was something that I could use as motivation, right? But I never connected to the feeling that I could actually accomplish that. I always felt like an imposter. And I felt like an imposter not because I don't think that I could obtain that or hit that at some point, which I have not hit 100 deals before. But it's not because I don't think that I could get there. It's because I felt like an imposter because that goal was in alignment with who I am naturally. I used it, but it wasn't me, so it never really felt like me. This why, we hear a lot about life being the pursuit of a worthwhile goal or objective, and it's not really about achieving it. It's like what's that old saying. It's like,
Not the destination,
it's not the destination, it's the journey, right? That works if the journey is in alignment with your why. The journey fucking sucks if there's no correlation. If you're on a journey that you don't really want to be on and you don't understand why you're on it and you're just doing it for all the wrong reasons, that journey fucking sucks. I know because I lived that journey. I made $998,250 back in 2020 or 2021. I forget which one. Hold on, I have it written down. I was, no joke, 6 months away from leaving this business. I was very close to hitting like the biggest goal I've ever set. And I had for like 4 years running, trying to make $1 million. I was almost there. I was $2,500 away from it or whatever it was. And it didn't really even matter. Like it was kind of like a last kick in the old pants, right? But I was close. I was so unhappy. I had conversations with my wife. What would we do? We had a plan. We knew sort of like approximately where we would live. And I would just shut shit down, like close down my business. That's how close I was to walking away, because the journey at the end of the day wasn't in alignment with why. I wasn't in alignment with why. I didn't believe myself. I didn't have that faith. But now it doesn't matter. Like the goals that I set now, if they're financial, like, yes, they'll be nice. They don't matter to me as much anymore. The impact, right? The time freedom, the location freedom, that stuff matters more. All right. What's time? Sandy, what time do we have?
11:17.
11:17. See, that was an hour. I told you. That's the important shit. The rest of the stuff. All right. So I have things to talk about with regards to the business plan and properly setting these up. But does anybody have any questions on what we just went over and or anything that they'd like me to focus on with regards to the business plan? Don't all speak at once. Okay, I'm going to go over some things because there's some common themes with regards to business plans that I have seen either work for me or work for friends in the business. I've also seen things that are common themes amongst business plans. When I go back and I look at every one, which by the way, save your business plans, they're super fun to look at. Like 10 years from now, looking at where you were mentally and emotionally, what your goals were at that point in life, it's super fun to look back and sort of see where you were. Be as detailed as possible. Some of my business plans are like 6, 7, 8 pages long, like just typed out. But I wanted to get everything out of my head. And so the business plan that I created for you guys is really just simply to serve as like a format or a template. I would encourage you to go in whatever direction your mind takes you. Right? Be as detailed as possible. Do some work on it. Take a break, go back, read it. Do some more work on it. Take a break. Send it to other people, right? Within this group, send it to me. Get some feedback. See how it feels. Like this has to be impactful. If it's not impactful, you're not going to do it. Most people, they write out their business plan at the beginning of the year and they don't take a look at it ever again. There's 2 reasons. Number one is because they're not connected to the business plan. They just did it because. Number 2 is because it is a very stark illustration of how little they've done and they don't want to face the reality. And I had a third one, but it went away. So those 2 are fine. There's 2 things that there's 2 reasons. No. So be as detailed as possible. So I'm just going to go through a couple of thought process, mental maps for you guys to think about when you're setting up your business plans. Obviously, schedule is massively important. Like I can't underestimate trying to create a schedule that allows you to just follow something without determining on a daily basis exactly what you're going to do. This business is very difficult in the sense that we don't have a boss. We don't have a time clock that we have to be in and leave. And so left to our own devices, if we are not scheduled, we will justify doing other things, and or we will pretend to be working in order to justify to ourselves that we're not wasting time. That's why you see a lot of people, the people that do hang out at real estate offices, they come in and they actually don't work at all, but they're at the office, number one, because their spouse wants to see them leave the house. Number two is that, again, it just feels like they're working. But when they're there, they're not actually doing something. The schedule that you guys keep is massively important. From the time that you wake up, working out, can you do that at the end of the day, or does your family and lifestyle and kids allow you or afford you the opportunity to do that? Exercise, sleep, right? That's part of your business plan. You are a business owner. You don't come in at 8 o'clock and leave at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and just punch a time clock, and when you leave, you're done. The freedom that comes with a schedule is crazy. So I look at, there's a mental map that I learned over the past couple of years about leverage. If you guys haven't read the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, I would highly suggest doing that. It is one of the most impactful books you can read. Naval has an idea. He talks about the opportunity ladder. The opportunity ladder really has to do with leverage. And so when we think about leverage, leverage in the sense of business, what do most people think about? Do it. Say it. You don't know?
Well, time came to leveraging your time.
Time. And how do you get time back? How do you use leverage?
Delegating tasks to other people.
Absolutely. That's the first level of leverage is labor. So you can hire people to do tasks to give you time back for you to pour into other activities that are higher valued. So for folks like us, that might look like a VA to process transactions. That might look like a listing manager. That might look like somebody that's prospecting or cold calling for us, right? You can hire people to get the leverage of labor. It's the lowest form of leverage, though. Why is it the lowest form of leverage? People get sick. People quit, right? People need time off. They're not as efficient. You have to manage them, right? Like managing people is not, it's not like you just hire somebody and then they go. And you just delegate all of those tasks and you never have to deal with them again. It's leverage, believe me, but it's the lowest form of leverage. So when we operate our business, what can we outsource in order to get our time back? Second one is capital, and that's what we're doing here, right? We have the leverage of capital. So our money makes money. Our money works for us, which is great. That's all what we're doing. But what's the problem with the leverage of capital? Anybody? You have to have the fucking capital. So you got to go out and make capital. You got to go make money in order to invest it in assets that pay you money. Now, once you have it, it can work great for you. But if you don't have it, you can't use it. The leverage of labor is better than the leverage of capital is better than the leverage of labor. It doesn't get sick, doesn't need time off, doesn't quit. Efficiency is about the same, but you've got to make it in order to have it. And do you know what the third leverage is? It's technology. So the analogy that, I forget who originally said it, so I apologize, but the leverage, the opportunity ladder is like illustrated. If you're, the best example, or the example that I've always used is like a laundromat. If you're an employee at the laundromat, you have no leverage, you're trading your time for money. The leverage of labor says, all right, I'm going to manage the business and I'm going to hire employees. So now you outsource the activities, you get leverage of labor in order to free up time so that you can spend time building the business, which is great, but they get sick, they get hurt, they want more money, they quit, whatever it might be. So then you move on to the leverage of capital. And the capital in the laundry space might be, okay, well, I'm going to invest in multiple different stores, right? I have the capital, I'm going to buy 3 or 4 different stores. And that's good. You expand it. And then they use the leverage of labor. But again, you've got to have the capital. Then you've got to manage the labor. And not only do you manage the labor, but you manage the people that are managing the labor. It's never fully disconnected. Then there's the leverage of technology. So what if you created the technology that made the business of laundromats run smoother and more profitable? Now you create that technology and you sell that technology to different companies at a residual income on a monthly basis. And now all you're managing is the technology that can go one to many. So you create it once and then you can sell it to hundreds of different laundromats. There's no time component that gets increased with the increase in sales, or very little. There's a very nominal increase. And the fourth, which has just come up, which again, it was the three levels of leverage. The fourth one is now with the new age is attention. Attention in no uncertain terms. There is a reason that I have 1, 2, 3 cameras pointed at me right now, because I understand the leverage of attention. If you can go out and create attention, that's why Kim Kardashian can open up a company, a beauty care company, and all of a sudden it's worth billions of dollars. That's why Jake Paul, with his attention, can go out and create a drink company and then have a valuation of $1 billion overnight. That's why Jake Paul can fight Mike Tyson, which was the lamest fight I've ever seen, right? But get paid, I don't know how much he got paid, but that's because of attention. If he was just a normal guy working a normal job, he wouldn't be fighting Mike Tyson. But the reason that he did and he had that opportunity was because of attention. Going forward, attention is the new currency. There's no better leverage because you can talk one to many, right? We had 20 people sign up for this event. 6 or 8 of them don't come. We have it on Facebook Live, and then we're going to post it onto YouTube. It's going to live in perpetuity. Somebody who wants to digest my information and get to know me better is going to be able to watch this video 6 months from now. You create a parasocial relationship where people actually get to know you and trust you, because I can't sit in front of this camera for 2 hours and not be authentic. So people actually get to know you and they'll trust you. I know people on social media based on what they put out, because they put out enough content that it's really hard to fake who authentically they are. I feel like I know them and I would trust them. That's why I buy things that they recommend. That's why I listen to things that they recommend. That is very, very powerful. That is leverage at a scale that can't be competed with. There's 4 different levels of leverage. You can use every single one of them. You can hire people to make you more efficient. Then when you get the capital, you can invest the capital to give you more time freedom, right? You can try to create the technology. EXP created a platform to process transactions. They created the technology that allows me to do what I'm doing right now at scale. And it's compounding. And then I'm using the leverage of attention to create social relationships to increase everything, whether it's folks that are looking to buy or sell what your time is worth. Right? So if you can produce outcomes that earned income, and when I was prospecting, on average, if I was on the phones, I would make somewhere, get the exact amount right now, but it was something like $800 or $900 an hour prospecting, based on the hours that I prospected and the results that I had at the end of the year. You do that over an extended period of time, you can go, okay, well, I prospected 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, 200 days a year. I made 10,000 contacts. I made this amount of money. I'm making $1,000 per hour of prospecting. Now, the idea of inputting a listing into MLS or putting up a sign to save $50 on the expense of having another person put it up, or hiring a VA at $10 an hour, or hiring somebody to do all of your photography. Those things, you have to start looking at those things. And if you commit to it, most people don't commit to it because they don't want the pressure to have to pay that person. So shift your mindset on leverage of labor from them costing you money to them making you money. I always looked at labor as an opportunity to make a lot more money. If I hire somebody for $60,000 a year, I expect that they will make me like 3 or 4 times that amount of money. So it's actually, if you look at it, it's going to cost me money by not doing it, because I'm doing $15 an hour work. I'm doing $10 an hour work. I'm doing $30 an hour work instead of, and John alluded to this, you still have to do the activity that creates the amount of money. You can't just pay somebody to sit back unless that's within the budget. If your goals align with doing less work and making less money, but having more freedom of time and what you do, that's fine. But be crystal clear that that's what you're doing, because then you're in alignment with exactly what you want. I don't know, makes sense to me. Look at leverage, and then look at pillars. So I know we've gone over pillars before, and with a business plan, you really want to start with what your first quarter is going to look like and identify the activities. The way that I look at pillars is, what is the one thing that I could do in that space that if I did, everything else would become either easier or unnecessary? So again, what is the one thing that I could do within a certain space that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? Now, that might be the leverage of labor. That might be implementing a technology that will allow things to be easier. But what is that one thing? If you're hung up on something, what is that one thing? And then when you focus your time and energy and effort on that one thing, it either makes everything easier. So look at it from the perspective of not only your business, but what about your health? So like, if you look at your health on a daily basis, what if you got more sleep? What if you prioritized your schedule so you got 8 hours instead of 6 hours? Would that make everything easier? What about what you eat? What if you prioritize? What's the one thing? If you ate a better lunch, if you planned in advance to be able to bring your lunch versus buying something at the store that makes you feel groggy and fills you up and makes you sleepy in the afternoon, what's the one thing that you could change in that aspect? So you can look at spiritual. So like for me, for a very long time, I would wake up and I would do Tony Robbins priming exercise. It's 15 minutes, but it stopped me and it was directed. So it was almost like it's a form of meditation, but it makes you think about the things that you're grateful for. It sets me up. So spiritually, for a very long time, every morning I would wake up and I would put that on play, and I would do that either in the sauna, before my workout, after my workout, but I'd start my day with that because it made everything easier that day.
What is that?
Just Google Tony Robbins priming and it'll pop up. So physically, sleep, that was a big thing for me. Consistently, and for the better part of 10 years, I would get around 5 hours of sleep. As a 43-year-old, 5 hours doesn't fucking cut it anymore, right? When I was 29 and 30, 5 hours was like, I got a solid 5, let's fucking go, right? That doesn't work anymore. I need 6.5, 7 at a minimum. 8 hours, if I can. I can't sleep past 5 a.m. So on the weekends, even if I go to bed at midnight, I wake up at 5 a.m. because I've waked up between 4:30 and 5 a.m. for 15 years. So my body just doesn't allow me to sleep late. I have to go to bed earlier. So what's the one thing? If I go to bed by 9, that's a lot better than going to bed at 11. But I have to be intentional about going to bed at 9, which means I need to get my kids to sleep before 9 o'clock, right? So what is the one thing that can make everything else easier or unnecessary? Look at your business. Mine was hiring somebody. This last quarter, I didn't have the time to be able to take care of the opportunity ladder of attention. I knew that I needed somebody to help. So that's now why we have somebody on staff to handle all media. I had that integrated so that will make everything I'm doing easier. I don't have to think, I don't have to plan, I don't have to do anything. I just have to do what she says I need to do. It's gonna make everything fucking easier. What about key relationships? What relationship? You are one relationship away from drastically changing the trajectory of your life. I truly believe that. I've had 3 people in my life that have drastically and materially changed the trajectory of my life. When you find those people, you know, too, what relationship that if you created would make things drastically easier or absolutely unnecessary. Finances. Like if you make a certain amount of money, just get a bookkeeper. It'll make everything easier. When you look at pillars, look at it from the perspective of identifying the thing that will make everything easier. That will guide you. And every quarter, that's what I want you to do, is look at that thing that will make things easier or unnecessary. I think it's important when we look at this, and I don't even know, did I put it down there? Did I have accountability on there? I don't think so. So accountability is an important part. When you guys are looking at business planning, accountability is going to be massive until you have such overwhelming personal accountability that you don't need external accountability. I don't, at this point in my career, need external accountability. I have very clearly connected with the why and the justification. I am so abundantly clear on the direction that I'm going. I'm so motivated by the why that I don't need external accountability. I needed massive accountability when I was striving for those other goals. And to a certain extent, I think that accountability, I do have accountability. I talk to my coach every week. I have mastermind groups. You guys hold me accountable. I mean, I have explained what I'm doing and everyone knows it. And so if I don't do that, that's a sense of accountability. So perhaps what I just said is not true. I have accountability. It just isn't in the structured way that I used to. But I used to have accountability, and a lot of you guys know this. I used to, if I didn't hit my contact goal on a daily basis, it would cost me $250. 52 contacts a day, 200, and I think it was 217 days a year. If I was sick with the flu, I owed $250 if I didn't hit my contacts. If I hit 51 contacts, I owed $250. And I was partnered with 2 other women that were in their fucking 60s, and they hit their goddamn contact goal every single day. I think I paid like $3,000 or $4,000 in accountability that year. But the next year I made like close to $800,000. I had an accountability that every morning when I got to the office, after my role play, which I did at 7:30, at 8 o'clock, I would sign on to my a Google Meet. And there was 5 other people on the Google Meet, and we would all prospect from 8 o'clock until 12 o'clock. If you get caught doing personal business while you're supposed to be prospecting, you would owe $100. If you didn't show up for the day, you would owe money. I needed to box myself in with that accountability to make sure that I didn't go off. I wasn't in an environment like we have here, where there's perhaps more people on a local basis or within an office that can keep us motivated and accountable. I had to create that the way that I needed to. So these guys and gals were across the United States. We would talk and we would text every day. And you could say to yourself, well, listen, I would just, like, why pay $250? I would just lie and say I hit my contact goal. And you could do that. But I think if you set up all of that accountability to really keep you accountable, I think the feeling of like being that person that skirts out of it, it's way more harmful than the $250. Like you text that, yeah, I got 52 contacts, and you're like, I didn't do 52 contacts. That'll make you feel pretty fucking shitty, right? So the accountability works. Massive accountability. What time do you work out? How many workouts do you do? What time do you go to bed? What time are you saying daily affirmations? Right? Are you doing the spiritual things that you need to do on a morning basis to put you in the right frame of mind? Right? Spiritually, emotionally. All of those things, I promise you, if you're looking at doing them with other people, just even the fact that you would surround yourself with somebody else who has a like-minded goal will motivate you. But it may push you to do. I can't tell you how many days 52 contacts seemed like an impossibility, or if I had like 30 and it was like 4:30 at night. And my wife is texting me, what time are you going to be home? I think if we scrolled through and saw what time are you going to be home, like that's probably the question she's asked me the most out of any other question. That's probably more than any other question combined. What time are you going to be home? So now I have my wife, I've got my little 2-year-old. I know that I want to go home and I want to be with them, but I've got 30 contacts and I need to hit 52. How many times during hitting that 52 contacts between where I would have just used the justification, I'm working hard, my daughter's only 2, my wife wants me home. How many times do you go home instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing if you don't have somebody that holds you accountable for it? Think about the difference between the business that you would do. How many times did I get a listing or connect with a client to increase my business, not only in the moment, but also years down the road? How much business am I going to get this upcoming year from a contact that I made between contact 50 and 52? That could lead to like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but without the accountability. So what accountability are you putting in place? Is it like a little bit of accountability where it doesn't suck? I'm going to pay $20, which you can afford. It doesn't hurt. If you need to pay somebody, set up accountability with Sandy and pay her. I don't want your money. Okay? I don't want your money, but if you want somebody to hold you accountable, pay Sandy. She'll hold you accountable. Text her at the end of the day. And then you don't hit your goals, you got to Venmo her money.
I love this plan.
Yeah. Just as we laid it out. Accountability, think about it, guys, though. We are business owners that don't have a boss. Like your spouse or significant other cannot be your accountability partner. Has to be somebody else. It's a weird dynamic. It doesn't work. Accountability is massive. What accountability do you need to put in place to make sure that you hit your goals that you're really striving for? Sandy, give me like a 5-minute.
I will. It's 15 now.
Couple of thoughts on schedule and time management. The tighter your schedule, the more freedom that you have. We touched on that earlier, but the tighter the schedule that you keep, the more freedom that you have. It's like, all right, I'm going to go into the office between 8 and 4, and I'm going to try to accomplish these 4 tasks. You are going to use the time that you have in order to accomplish the tasks that you need to accomplish. I guarantee you those 4 tasks, if you only had 4 hours, would get done. The tighter your schedule is, the more freedom you have. %80 of your day when you're starting off should be focused on income producing activities. Prospecting, it's plan. Everybody uses that analogy, right? Prospecting, lead follow-up, appointments, going on appointments, and negotiating contracts. 80% of your day. As you're starting off and building your business, because we have newer agents here, you're not going to have the financial resources to delegate a lot of the activities. You're going to need to do those. But just keep it in the back of your mind that 80% of your time should be focused on income producing activities. Try at all costs to eliminate distractions. Whatever environment you're working at, whatever distractions you have, try to eliminate them at all costs. And you can do this by keeping track if you're intentional about it, and you can set up accountability to do it with somebody else if you need to, but start to track what the distractions are. So on a daily basis, keep a little notepad to the side, or if you do like a binder like I do, I always flip to the back side and I keep lists of stuff that I want to keep reoccurring notes on. So just keep a note at the end of your workbook. It says like, what are the distractions? Okay, well, I got distracted by this person calling. My sister calls me, right? My sister and I talk almost every day, right? It's like she calls, I want to talk to her, and then all of a sudden 30, 45 minutes go by. How often does that happen? So you just put a check mark when it happens. And then you start to check. And then at the end of a month, you look back and you look at all the distractions. And there will be common themes. Solve for those distractions as much as possible. Create a schedule where if you want to talk to your sibling, you want to talk to your spouse, you want to do that sort of stuff, schedule it. Because that will give you, if you go back to it, the tighter your schedule is, the more freedom you'll have. Be intentional about this stuff. This is why the business plan is so important, because if you detail this, if you see it, if you see the schedule, if you see the pillars that you're working on, if you can correlate between the activity that you're doing and that one activity to make everything else easier, and then you have a connection between the why you're doing it to the outcome that you want, and then you review it, you should be reviewing it all the time. Arguably, if you create a compelling enough business plan, you should write it out. One of my business plans, I think it was 2015, maybe it's 2016. I literally hand wrote it every morning for like a month. It was like 6 pages. You want to be really connected to your goals? Write out your business plan every day for a month. January, same thing. I could do it without looking at it. You will internalize that. You will connect with it. Anything that doesn't feel right when you're writing it down for 30 days in a row, you'll start to recognize why you're not like connected to that one piece. That doesn't make sense to me. But if you do your business plan and you put it in your desk like most people do, and you start doing all of the activities, and very slowly you work back to the status quo of exactly the way that you've done things always. And then 3 months go by and you see your business plan when you're flipping through stuff and you're like, ooh, I'm not gonna look at that because I haven't done shit on it. It's gonna affect your motivation. It's gonna affect your ability to stay connected to your goals back in the day. And again, I'm not saying that like setting goals for thriving things isn't important. Like I like nice things. I like going on vacations. I like driving the car that I have. I like the house that I have. But I have connected the dots between the activities that I need to do and the sacrifice that I'm willing to make. I recognize that I am extending the time until I'm financially free for the things that I want for myself and my family. But what's really cool, so I went back and I looked at my goals in 2015. 2015, I wanted this watch. I worked 3 years. I set a goal to make $500,000 to buy. It was like a $3,500, $4,000 watch. I saw it in Vegas when I was at a retreat, and I said, I need a goal. Really love the watch. I think I made like $450,000 that year, so I didn't get it. And the next year I made like $493,000, so I didn't get it. And the next year was the one that I ended up getting it. But the 2015 goal was like a $4,000 watch. I wanted to fly first class to every event that I went to. I hate airplanes. I hate airports. Like, I am an introvert at heart. Being around people at the airport makes me want to fucking scream. So flying first class like materially affects the experience of when I'm there, because now I'm not dreading the entirety of the event to get from here to there. So this was cool. So new home. I want a huge master closet and bathroom. I want an in-ground pool with a pool house. I want a large kitchen with a great room. I want a 3-car oversized garage, and I want land. This was in 2015. 2016, I bought the house that I'm currently in. All of those things are in my house. This is literally word for word what was on my list. 2016, I bought the current house that I have. All of these things are in it. I had a new car on there. I bought that in 2017, 17. And I had a vacation home at the time. That has fallen off the list. It's not compelling enough for me. I'd rather have freedom and then work towards vacationing whenever, wherever I want. Just living in a place. These are cool things that if you do this, you can look back on it. I never hit a goal, right? My closing goal from 2014, 50, 75, 75, 80, 80, 75, 100, 100, 100, 75. And this past year, I had no transaction goal. I never hit one of those. But I went from 200,000 to 451 to 501 to 551. I made 680, 651, 998, 792. This year I'll bring in just from real estate activities just over $1 million. So $1,022,000 by the time the year is done. I've never hit a goal prior to this, but I've always made incremental improvements. I've gotten better and more compelling reasons. I figured these things out. So if you're watching, God bless you for watching on Instagram Live. But if you're watching, and anybody that's here, I know some of you I coach, some of you that are on the team, some of you that are in the downline. Obviously, we're going to be working together over the next couple of weeks to really refine these things. If you're not and you are interested, send me your business plan. Part of what I really enjoy about what I'm doing now is that I'm naturally curious and inquisitive. I want to understand why people do the things that they do. And I think that I've gotten particularly good at challenging people in a way that doesn't offend them. And so if you don't want to be challenged or questioned on your business plan, then probably don't send it to me. But if you want some honest feedback, if you want me to evaluate it, and I really will, I will take the time free of charge. We can set up a 15 or 20 minute meeting afterwards. I can go over the business plan and just tell you exactly what I think. And if you hear that offer and you don't take advantage of it, now maybe there's somebody else, maybe there's a coach, maybe there's somebody in your life that will do that for you. But if you don't have anybody else do it and you don't take advantage of that offer, I've sold over 1,000 homes in my career. I'm running an office that next year will make $1.5 to $1.7 million in earned income. I've been through this. I've been in the business for over 20 years. This is my true sort of passion and intention, is to pour out and help other people. Have some fun, do it with like-minded, fun people. And so if you guys are interested in that, I'm happy to take a look at it. If you have, as you're filling these things out too, if you have any feedback on it, if you think there's things that might have been better to include in there or not include, let me know that too. It's a constantly working document. I don't think we'll ever be finished with it, but happy to hear your feedback too. So thank you all for coming. If people are online, thank you guys for joining and watching along. And I'll look forward to seeing most of you guys real soon. All right.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.